This whole 300-acre private lake, it belongs to the Pinterest HOA, and I'm the president. But don't let that fool you. What you're seeing now isn't the HOA you'd expect. That's Connie Blackwell, the so-called president, standing next to one of the 27 vacation cabins that families built on my family's land without a permit. Yeah, no permission, no legal right to be there, and it's all happening on my inherited shoreline. For 3 years, Connie convinced people they could just pay her fake HOA fees and bypass the actual property owner to build whatever they wanted. As a result, they've created an entire illegal village on land that's been in my family since 1947, all while she pocketed $847,000 in the process. Then she demanded I pay $14,000 in back dues for land that's legally been mined for decades. It was at that point when I pulled out the original deed that everything started to unravel. I was holding the key to everything, those 27 unauthorized structures, the stolen money, and one woman who thought she could steal my inheritance. So what did I do? I turned the tables, and trust me, this story gets wild. What would you do with squatters on your land? Let me know in the comments below. You see, my grandfather, Dutch McKinnon, bought this entire lake and its surrounding 300 acres back in 1947. He paid $8,200, just returned from World War II with a Purple Heart, and was determined to build something lasting for his family in America. I remember him teaching me how to fish from the dock he built with his own hands. Every summer, I'd spend weeks here hearing his stories about helping immigrant families settle around the lake in the 1950s, people who respected property lines and asked permission before building so much as a shed. When Dutch died 6 months ago, he left me everything, including a handwritten note: "Protect our land from those who would steal what we built." I thought I'd spend a peaceful weekend cleaning out his cabin and maybe do some fishing for old time's sake. But I showed up to chainsaws and concrete mixers at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The air smelled of fresh lumber mixed with diesel fumes, nothing like the pine-scented tranquility I remembered. Walking along the shoreline, I found a whole subdivision, 27 vacation cabins, complete with private docks, septic systems, and paved roads, none of which were authorized. And these weren't just basic fishing shacks. We're talking full-on vacation homes with decks, landscaping, and enough solar panels to power a small town. As I got closer to the nearest cabin, 3 families came out giving me the look of a burglar. "You can't just show up here and cause trouble," one of them snapped. Another woman stepped forward, arms crossed. "We've been building here for 20 years. You're the outsider here." The hostility was immediate, and they genuinely believed they had the right to be there. That's when Connie Blackwell made her entrance, 50s, perfectly styled silver hair, and an Escalade with Pinterest HOA vanity plates. She wasn't your average HOA president. "You must be Dutch's grandson," she said with practiced authority. "I suppose no one told you about our established community management structure here." For 3 years, Connie had been running a masterclass of deception. She convinced 27 families that by paying her $2,600 annually in fees, they somehow had construction rights on someone else's private property. As I asked about permits and property boundaries, the families got defensive. They'd built septic systems, boat launches, and roads without any authorization. One woman held up construction receipts. "We've put our life savings into this," she said. "You can't destroy our retirement dreams over some technicality." Then Connie handed me an invoice for $14,000 in back dues. It was a cheap-looking piece of paper compared to the original deed I was holding, and it felt like an insult. "Community bylaws require all property owners to maintain current association membership," she declared with all the confidence of someone who'd watched one too many HOA horror stories on YouTube. That night, I sat in Dutch's cabin, surrounded by 75 years of legal documents, property tax receipts, and permits. Every single paper proved that my family had legitimate ownership of the land since 1947. Meanwhile, construction noise echoed across the lake, and I knew these people weren't about to stop building their illegal empire. By Monday morning, all 27 families had pooled their money to hire a law firm that specialized in what they called adverse possession rights. They were claiming squatters' rights to my property. They sent a certified letter saying they had been building for over 20 years without complaint. The only problem, most of these cabins were built after 2019. And none of them had been there for the required 21 years needed for adverse possession. Connie's scam was crumbling fast, and I wasn't going to let it stand. So I got to work. Hired my own lawyer and sent certified letters to all the families. Cease all construction activities immediately. You are building on private property without authorization. Of course, they didn't take it well. Every sign I put up was torn down within hours, and Thompson, one of the families, came over to confront me. He'd invested $180,000 into his property, and he wasn't going down without a fight. "You're not going to destroy what we've built," he yelled, pointing a finger in my chest. But I wasn't backing down. A few families like the Martinez family quietly approached me, offering to pay rent or make things right. But the rest, led by Connie, were doubling down, claiming that their illegal construction was somehow protected. They even hired an expensive lawyer and organized community meetings to rally the troops. Meanwhile, I dug into the county records. Connie's entire case rested on a lie. None of these cabins had been around long enough to claim squatters' rights. The buildings had all been erected in the last few years, mostly during the pandemic. Armed with this information, I sent more legal letters and started posting official no trespassing signs. The families responded by tearing them down and continuing to build. But then came Connie's next move, an additional $3,000 legal fee per family to protect them from my legal actions. And she convinced the families to petition for emergency rezoning, hoping to turn my private lake into an established residential community. The whole thing was falling apart faster than they could build. As if that wasn't bad enough, I discovered that Connie had been running similar scams in 6 other states. Over $2.3 million was unaccounted for. And the families, desperate to protect their investments, started paying her even more money. Meanwhile, I was working with federal investigators who were gathering the evidence that would bring Connie's entire operation crashing down. And when the storm hit, things got even crazier. Some families filed insurance claims for water damage, only to find out that their policies were completely invalid because the structures were on stolen land. Panic set in, and some families started to turn on each other. Then in the dead of night, Connie attempted to forge a quick claim deed transferring my property to her fake association. But when it was discovered, she tried to play the victim, claiming I was mentally unstable and trying to frame her. But the truth was clearer than ever. This was a fraud, a scam built on lies and greed. Federal investigators were closing in, and soon Connie's empire would crumble. The feds uncovered a whole network of criminal activity, including tax evasion, mail fraud, and racketeering. The investigation had reached a point where the only question left was how big the fallout would be. Connie, facing criminal charges in multiple states, was finally arrested. Her scheme was exposed for what it was: massive, illegal, and cruel. In the end, justice was served. The illegal cabins were demolished. The families who had been part of the scheme were charged, and the environmental damage was repaired. Dutch's Lake once again was protected. And Connie, the mastermind behind it all, was sentenced to prison, along with the other key players. The families who had been caught up in her scam lost their homes, but at least they couldn't hurt anyone else with their greed. So what does all this teach us? Sometimes people will try to take what's not theirs, believing they can get away with it. But when the law catches up with them, there's no hiding. Whether it's land money or power, justice has a way of finding its way back. Now let me ask you, have you ever encountered something like this in your community? A scam, an injustice, or a power struggle? Let me know in the comments. And if this story made you want to double-check your own property documents, hit that like button. Share this with friends who have HOA situations. They need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about small-time power and big-time consequences.